Hello and welcome to The Creative Experience. My name is Derek Hunt and I'm a professional glass artist, and I interview fellow artists to showcase their work to bring you the very best in what's happening now with glass across the globe. I interview artists from a wide variety of backgrounds. Some of them are at the beginning of their careers. They've just been working with glass for maybe 5 or 6 years. Others have got an international reputation and an award-winning portfolio of glass in a variety of formats. All of them have one thing in common. They're producing beautiful, innovative and exciting new glass, and I'm here to elevate that and showcase it to you as a way of inspiring the next generation and developing a community of fellow creatives. If you find value in this, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because I create videos on a very regular basis. And so today it is my great pleasure to introduce and bring to your attention Gill Hobson. I was first introduced to Gill's work fairly recently at a conference where we were both invited to speak about the future of stained glass, and I was really impressed with what I saw. I see Gill's work as taking stained glass into the 21st century. She still uses colour, she still uses light, and she plays with colour and light in environmental spaces in exactly the same way that traditional stained glass does. But she had removed the whole matrix of lead and just paints with pure colour, using reflection and transmitted light. Her works are extraordinary sculptures, filling the environments with colour, image and light. I really hope you enjoy today's interview, so sit back, relax and enjoy. Hi Gill, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. It's great to see you. Where are you speaking from today?
So I'm speaking from my office at home, my occasional office at home. Yeah.
Fantastic. And is this where you do most of your design work, or do you have another place that you work at as well?
So I've got a couple of places actually at home where I do a lot of my design work, but anything clean I try and do at home. But I've got a workshop over at a place called the Rope Walk in Barton-on-Humber, and that's where I do anything messy and things that need space and light and things. So yeah, so I've got kind of a two-centre arrangement, design here and making at Barton.
So take us back to how you started in glass. You've been on a really interesting journey, which has sort of culminated in a doctorate in the subject, which is like the high level of study that you've been engaged with over the years. But how did that whole process start for you?
Oh, well, I guess it started when I was a child. I live by the coast, so spend summers at the beach and go beach combing and find these little pieces of beach glass and think, oh, they were treasure, little jewels. And I guess that very innocent kind of childlike fascination with being able to change your perception of the world through looking through a coloured object, if you like, has kind of stayed with me for, all the way through. When I was doing my first degree, I did have an opportunity to, even though it was an industrial course, work with a lot of different techniques and kind of explore and experiment. And I wasn't always able to kind of apply those in other contexts, but they certainly informed my design thinking, my awareness of what was possible. And I didn't really come to stained glass until quite a while after I graduated, and I've been kind of working in the commercial design industry. One of the things that I really wanted to do was create and make new work, for, I don't know, a kind of a form of therapy, I suppose, to kind of explore and to kind of, lose myself. And in that making process, I consider myself very much a maker, even though a lot of what I do now is quite techie based. I'm not a techie, I'm very much hands-on maker. And that kind of has led me to explore lots of different avenues and try lots of different things out, and always keep coming back to that. That's kind of a really grounding element, actually hands-on making things. So I've ended up having quite a kind of varied practice around glass, colour and light, that's informed from lots of different experiences and working across lots of different, areas of practice, really.
So I was first introduced to your work fairly recently when we were both invited to speak at the British Society of Master Glass Painters annual discussion day down in London, and I was so impressed with your work. I was unaware of it, and I was really taken with this wonderful sort of sculptural use of light. You really play and paint with light in an architectural context. You use the environment and you use colour and you use light in a really interesting and exciting way. But how has that evolved? Because that's now quite a detailed installation method that you have. How did you begin to explore that? Where did that inception come from?
Well, it's quite talking about kind of, previous experiences always add up to, a new opportunity or a new insight. So I'd worked in arts and health for a number of years as a design manager and leading projects, and actually, also with some hands-on making. And I'd done a lot of work with stained glass, well, Tiffany technique, if you like, with people recovering from long-term mental health challenge. And that led me to do a lot of work around shadows and light, and how shadows animate space and therefore animate time and bring duration into your experience of space. And, thinking of domestic space or architectural space as a kind of having the potential of being a giant sundial, and that idea that time is mapped through light that we don't necessarily consciously perceive. So it's kind of getting under that, what we think we see and what, our unconscious makes us aware of, that was kind of driving some of that early experimentation with colour and light and reflective and refractive mediums. So that's a long way, I guess, of saying that I'm interested in the emotional and psychological kind of resonances that can come about through colour and light arrangements. And it also links, of course, to, the original kind of, one of the original purposes of stained glass or coloured glass back in the medieval period, to bring some kind of empowerment or sustenance to the pilgrim, by bathing in the coloured light, as a form of renewal and and worship, I guess. So yeah, so lots of different things kind of coming together to somehow form a congruence, shall we say, that kind of drove me to really start digging and experimenting and finding ways that I could create this kind of emotional, psychological resonance through colour and light and architectures. And yeah, and that's kind of where my work is at the moment.
I mean, it would be really interesting for our viewers for you to describe the construction of some of your pieces, because when you actually look at them as a photograph or as an image, there's an awful lot of images and overlapping images going on, and it's very difficult to see how that's actually conceived, how that's created. So can you talk us through a little bit about the construction of your artworks and how they actually function?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of my work operates around the reflective and refractive qualities of glass. It operates with, quite careful sort of manipulation of angles of incidence. And I also use projection to both bring colour and image into the work, but also to animate a very powerful light source, with a kind of high lumen content. And when I was first started working with these techniques, I thought, I'll just get some coloured glass and I'll shine some light through it and it'll be fine. But it's kind of, how do you get away from something being, to all intents and purposes, a lamp, and into something that is, an architectural experience. And so I had to kind of rethink where I was coming from. And I used actually a lot of mirrors and mirrored surfaces and clear glass, actually, because it's clear glass in itself is highly reflective, but I also use coloured films and coloured glass when the opportunity permits, to kind of create these kind of multi-layered image constructs, and I think in my early work they were quite busy, you know, very angular, very busy. I was really interested in place, and I wanted to take a journey kind of outside the confines of architectural space and kind of get out into the street, if you like, into the world. And I did a lot of journeys around towns and places, and kind of collaged those images together, and then projected them onto mirrored surfaces, mirrored columns or mirrored planes, or simply glass cubes, clear glass cubes, and kind of experimented with expanding that imagery to do something that was big scale. Yeah. So
And would you consider yourself? I mean, the terminology and how you describe yourself is very subjective. But would you consider yourself to be a projection artist, or a glass artist, or a kinetic sculpture artist? How would you describe what you do? Because there's an awful lot of overlap between different disciplines here.
yeah, there is. I think, you know, I'm a hybrid. I don't easily fit into any of those kind of boxes, and you know that is problematic actually. But what I would say is I consider myself a glass artist, you know, at the core, because actually glass and the experience of glass is a critical context for me. One of the things that I really wanted to do as part of that PhD study we spoke about earlier was really dig down deep and find out why the heck I kept coming back to glass. You know, I could do anything, why do I keep coming back to glass? And to kind of unpick that at a really, you know, deep, fundamental level. And so I still feel very much connected to glass, and to stained glass in particular, because of the scale and the relation to architectural space, the colour, the light. But I guess in a way, you know, similarly an installation artist or a light artist. I wouldn't want to, you know, I wouldn't consider myself a projection artist, although I do use projection. Not always, but I do use projection, because I think that just takes you into a whole other territory of kind of projection mapping buildings and things like that, and that's not my interest.
I think that's what I find particularly inspiring about your work, because for me as a glass artist, what you're doing is a natural evolution, it is a natural development of what glass does, and that sort of subliminal effect that glass has. We've all had those moments when you're just transfixed by this sort of epiphany of light and texture that bathes you in a building, whether it's an ecclesiastical building or a secular building, or even if you're walking in the woods and you get this dappled light, that kind of transformative effect that light can have on you, and how it changes your mood. I see your work experimenting with that, and it's the natural evolution of taking glass as a traditional material and putting it in a lead matrix, to freeing it from the lead matrix and still having that wonderful connection of colors and how it affects an interior. It's to me, it is a glass based exploration that you're doing as well. It's not a projectionist at work. It's a glass artist at work, evolving the medium of glass and playing with light in its purest form.
Mm. Yeah, I'd agree with that, and you know, and it's about experience. You know, it is about having the context for that moment of intense experience, I suppose. What I don't want to do is kind of turn it into a sort of sound and light show.
You know, that's exactly what I was thinking as you were talking, because you stray into the territory of theatre, and it becomes a theatrical event, and really what you're looking for is something where someone is centered and they're responding to it in silence, and that's almost like a meditation, almost like a contemplation, which is an entirely different thing from a theatrical experience, isn't it? Which is a much more visceral. You're engaging all of your senses. You're almost wanting to make it a singularity. You're wanting people to just simply concentrate on what is happening with the light and how that light is affecting the space in which it inhabits. It's a different type of experience, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And like I say, it's tempting to kind of go, oh yeah, let's do this thing. But actually, I think that the nature of this kind of work and these kinds of experiences, as you say, is to really reorientate people, not to provide another multisensory stimulation, like they're watching a show, or what happens next. I'm not looking to control people's experience. I'm merely looking to control that environment, so that they can have their own experience, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. So this is a question I love to ask artists that I'm talking to, but it's a difficult question to answer. Can you talk about maybe 3 projects that are of a particular interest to you, that are things that you particularly feel illustrate your work and illustrate your direction and your direction of travel?
Yeah, that is a really hard question. So I think what I would say is one of the earliest public showings that I did using this technique was in Grimsby Minster. It was called Patterns of Place. It was commissioned for Museums at Night. And that gave me the first opportunity, I think, to kind of take these experiments out of the studio and into the public realm. And that was scary, not least because it was sited below a huge Victorian stained glass window, with, in all its glory, absolutely that Victorian stained glass vernacular. And I thought, oh wow, I've got to compete with this. And I did a lot of learning on that piece, because about turning up the saturation on the projections, about how to angle the projections, about how to angle the planes, because it was such a big space, and it had to hold its own in this huge space under a massive stained glass window. And I'm satisfied that it did. And so that, for me, is a favourite, because it was just such a massive learning curve to take it from the studio, a little maquette in the studio, oh yeah, that's lovely, and turn it into a big thing. That was a massive learning curve. So I love that. That's still remains one of my favourite pieces. Another one, I suppose, is well, it's a series of works, actually, the Shape in Light series. And that was, again, you learn through doing, and this is being a maker. This is you can design it all you want, and you can tech it up all you want, but until you make it in freedom, in real life, in full size, you don't know if it's going to work or not. You hope that it will. And so the Shape in Light series started with a little kind of almost tabletop size piece and a projector. That was a really cool series of works, actually, to work on, because again it made me push the envelope with it. And just as I thought, I've got this, I know what I'm doing, I've got my approach, got my techniques, I'm in. And every space you work in has got its own character. So, for example, the church at the Minster, that piece I did at the Minster, it's made of these big sort of, sandstone blocks, very kind of traditional kind of build. Wow, they just soak the light up, you kind of project onto those, and they're just like, your light's gone. So you're like cranking up the saturation to just get anything to hold in there. And you think, I can't show this. And then, because it's like literally hurting your eyes, and then you project it into that environment, it just soaks it all in and calms it all down and makes it, how you want it to be. So, so every time I'm working with a new architecture, or it's a new dynamic, and it's a new experiment, shall we say. And I don't know if I've got I think that the piece I'm working on at the moment, which is called Material Light, that's my current favourite, because it's very slow and very contemplative. It's very simple, really simple proposition. A single projection source, a single set of mirror planes, and that's it. That's it really. So it's kind of really reductive approach to give a very different experience.
Well, Jill, this has been fabulous. I've absolutely loved spending time with you today, and it's just wonderful to have a platform to show your work to a wider audience. I think your work is fabulous. It's really exciting. I love the direction that you're going in, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how you continue to develop your new visual language in exciting ways. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Derek. It's really been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.